Let's take a look at configuring isometric drawing settings. To configure isometric drawing settings, we need to go to the properties of the project. Now remember, we can go ahead and we can click on the title, right click that would be, and we can choose properties. But there's also another way we can get into the properties of our project, and that's we can go to the project manager drop down here in the home tab of the project panel, and then we can go to project setup. And once we go into project setup, we're going to be given some various options that we can go to. If you scroll down past general settings, P&ID drawing settings, plant 3D drawing settings, you'll see isometric drawing settings. If you'll expand those choices there, you'll see a section that says ISO style setup. Now, the ISO style setup creates and configures ISO styles for piping isometrics and spool drawings. It's going to set the paths and directories where isometric drawings can be stored. So let's take a look. First, you have some choices for ISO style setups. You have a check ANSI B sheet, check ANSI C finals, and some spools and stress that you can go from. You can also create a new ISO style based on an existing one. So if you go ahead and you click that, then you can go ahead and you can create a new ISO style from there. You do have a spool format that you can choose, and if you choose the spool drawing, that applies the ISO style to spool drawings, obviously. You can apply ISO styles to isometric drawings or spool drawings, and remember, in case you're not aware, a spool drawing is a subset of a piping isometric that has a start and end points indicating the fabricated subassembly. Basically, sometimes it's the way you need to break it down so that you can get it to fit on a truck. Let's take a look at configuring isometric drawing settings. To configure isometric drawing settings, we need to go to the properties of the project. Now remember, we can go ahead and we can click on the title, right click that would be, and we can choose properties. But there's also another way we can get into the properties of our project, and that's we can go to the project manager drop down here in the home tab of the project panel, and then we can go to project setup. And once we go into project setup, we're going to be given some various options that we can go to. If you scroll down past general settings, P&ID drawing settings, plant 3D drawing settings, you'll see isometric drawing settings. If you'll expand those choices there, you'll see a section that says ISO style setup. You have a section here for table overflow, and what table overflow is going to do is going to specify whether or not to split the drawing if a bill of materials table becomes a little too large. Now, let's swing over to the file naming section. File naming is going to specify whether file naming is by line number, sheet number, alphabetical, or line number, sheet number numeric, which is the default. This can be set only for isometric drawing styles. Spool drawings have the spool number as the file name. And if you look over, you can add a property here. We'll go ahead and take a look at this drop down. You can see some of the different properties. And this is going to add properties to the file name. You can edit the prefix box to remove properties after they have been added. You can go over here and let's take a look at where these spools are. This is going to define the spool sizing convention for a style. And you also have a sizing method. Now the sizing method specifies whether spool sizing is automatic based on maximum size or on maximum weight. Now you also have the option to specify that the spool number from the model can be used. If you choose a maximum weight or size, you can enter the specific dimensions or the weight below in the drop down list. You also have an area where you can identify the maximum pipe length. You can see that there. And that's going to be for your segments as spools. It's going to specify that the segments with maximum pipe length are spools. And then you have an ISO files path. This is going to define exactly where your ISO paths are going to go to or where things are going to be saved. You have the production ISO output directory where it's going to set the location of the production ISO output directory, and you can also choose your quick ISO output directory. This is going to set the location of the quick ISO outputs. So remember that quick ISOs are never actually added to the project. Now, in addition to the ISO style setup, you have ISO style default settings, and we'll take a quick look at those. And you're going to see some of the same things that we've seen before, but of course, applied a little differently. More or less, these are ways that you can customize your isometric drawing. And going through here, you'll be able to pick different choices so that you can have a custom look to your ISO, or perhaps you have to kind of best match what you have as existing company practices. You have an area over here which a lot of people find helpful to be able to adjust the congestion of your isometric, whether you want your split points create automatically or you want to create the level of congestion by either choosing less or more. You can also choose to split the drawing on property changes. Now, we also have a section that's dedicated to annotations where you can have some customizations with your annotations depending on your needs, possibly custom our company standards. Same for dimensions. You can also specify and customize dimensioning styles. You have some pre-made themes here, as well as you can create your own. Some of the themes that you have here, you can see these. And then you can also further customize some of your dimensioning types, as you can see the examples that's given to you in the preview block. You also have a choice here, or some choices, for how sloped and offset piping is going to be represented. So taking a look at the offset piping, just to kind of give you an example here, perhaps you wanted to show up with a skew box. You can see this in the preview here. The skew triangle plus normal dimensioning, or a skew triangle with alternative dimensioning. So these are just a few of the options you have, and of course you can sit down and go through this and best match the standards that you need for your drawing. But this part's just meant to kind of introduce you to how you can change and customize your isometric drawing, and then kind of set you in a direction so that you can determine the style that you wish to employ on your ISOs.